Tanille Johnston, thank you for the time.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
So here you are as a candidate, distinguished by a few factors. Your age, for one, you're the youngest candidate running for the NDP leadership right now. The other distinction is that you're the first Indigenous woman, first Indigenous person to be running and appear on the final ballot of any federal party's leadership. Does that make you, in your own mind, a bit of a change maker?
I mean, I would be honored to be called a change maker. I think that's fantastic. I think I've always been someone that wants to take up challenging spaces, and I tend to actually do quite well up against a challenge. And I think I'm just kind of proving myself, I guess, at a federal level. And it means a lot to carry kind of that piece of history, but it means more to hopefully be an inspiration to Indigenous people that we can take up leadership spaces and we can do very well in those arenas. And we need to see more Indigenous people stepping into politics.
And it's interesting you say that, because when it comes to Indigenous Canadians, Indigenous relations, you have said that the NDP has not always shown up in ways Indigenous people have needed. What do you mean by that?
Yeah, so we don't have strong relationships with our over 600 nations across the country. Arguably, our nations don't have those strong relationships with any political party. And I would really love to see that built within the NDP, to see us showing up at the provincial and territorial meetings of the Assembly of First Nations, have regularly scheduled meetings with communities across the country to ensure that we are keeping our finger on the pulse and that we're very well aware of how nations need us and want us to show up in partnership for them in the House of Commons.
So keeping your fingers on the pulse, as you say. So is it just a matter of dialogue, that very basic tenet that the NDP is not yet meeting with Indigenous communities?
I think that's a great starting place. In the last federal election, I had the privilege of sitting with 11 elected chiefs and getting them to sit down with Jagmeet Singh and have a conversation. And they were so excited to have that opportunity to finally sit down with a leader and share their thoughts, their concerns, and where their priorities are at. And we need more of that. We need more of those opportunities so that we can truly show up as a strong ally in the House of Commons.
So that's one level of engagement. You also talk about the need for the party to engage younger voters. Why do you think that's not happening right now?
Yeah, I mean some of it might come down to just the approach of the strategy. I know provincially we have some really strong relationships with campus clubs across the country, and they're doing some really inspirational work. But we haven't gotten there yet as the federal party, and I would really love us to move into that space. Our student movement across Canada is amazing. We have very passionate, energetic young people that really know the challenges that they're facing day to day, and arguably are one of the generations that's going to be most impacted by decisions made by government right now. So they're really in the thick of it. And they're the folks that, are either taking social work degrees or political science. They're writing papers on all these challenges right now. So they are experts in these arenas, and we need to welcome them into our party and really hold them up for that.
What's interesting is that when you consider the stance that you make about engaging more young people, engaging more frequently with Indigenous communities across this country, you add on to that your criticism of the party's past platforms, which you said focuses too much on just urban Canada and doesn't expand beyond that. What do you think about the policy platform of the party, the communications platform of the party? How do you think that needs to be addressed overall? If you were to become leader of the NDP, what would you be doing to change those? Because those are three very clear platforms and areas of address.
Yeah, so we need to move more onto other platforms of communication. We need to be leaning into education for all of our riding associations across the country for what their political makeup looks like in their voting geography, so that people can feel very kind of confirmed in how they're going to place their vote. We saw a lot of fear-based voting in the last election and a lot of confusion on essentially where was the ballot placed best to beat the Conservatives was the narrative that was kind of running across the country. And a lot of people were confused on that. And I feel like we could have had stronger education materials out there that would have offered those folks that confidence in placing their ballot for the NDP as the party to beat Conservatives in many ridings across the country. So that education piece is huge. The getting on other platforms, be on YouTube, be on Twitch, be on Mastodon and Snapchat and all these different engagement tools that we're currently not really using to their greatest ability, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm. Now, that is a party platform. I also wonder about larger platforms that if you were to be the leader, what would you actually be doing? And the first thing that comes to mind has to be the MOU that Ottawa has signed with the province of Alberta. You are British Columbian, you are an Indigenous Canadians. Both of the MOU does touch upon those identities with you. How would you engage with that issue if you were to become the NDP leader?
Yeah, I mean, we've heard very clearly from the nations in British Columbia that would be impacted by that pipeline that they're not interested. And that is a voice that we need to make sure is reverberating off the walls in the House of Commons. It's a no thank you right now. And they met with Prime Minister Carney and they offered their comments to him and their direction to him. So we need to stand with them in that, and support them in the self-governments that they are with their decision making. So that is, it is a really big one. As far as strategies on platforms, I'm a very big believer that healthcare is our nation building project. Healthcare touches almost every crisis that we're in right now. Housing is healthcare. Transportation is healthcare. We're seeing right now over in Nova Scotia, the arts are healthcare. Building community and establishing belonging keeps people healthy and well. And the arts are a big role in that. So decimating the arts and culture out of Nova Scotia, in my opinion, is going to have repercussions within their healthcare system.
Okay, so arts, healthcare, and I hear what you're saying that, but I want to get back to the MOU because it does, as you suggest, include in it a pipeline which does not have universal support in British Columbia. You say that you would stand with Indigenous communities that have expressed no thank you at this moment in time, but that could and would have an impact on provincial New Democrats, the Alberta NDP, and any provincial campaign they would have to carry out. As a federal leader, how concerned would you be about the provincial wings of the party?
I think we need to bring our provincial wings in closer and our territorial wings as well. We don't have like standard meetings set up where we're touching base and hearing where our provinces and our territories are at. There's a big divide there that I feel if we closen up, if we have better, stronger relationships with our provincial and territorial parties, we're going to understand the nuances of the battles that they face on the daily. And I know in Alberta, there's a huge concern about job loss. And I feel that is misinformation. There's a narrative out there that insinuates that renewable projects don't create jobs or that they create poorly paid jobs. And that's just not the case. There's great green, unionized, well-paying jobs in renewable energy, but that goes kind of back to that education piece. We really need to ensure that we have the tools and materials out there to demonstrate what that transition can look like and how an investment in education for free training for folks to be able to be ready to go to enter into that renewable industry, to build it from the ground up is really well understood, because I don't think it is right now. People feel that there's just going to be this kind of full on stop. Everybody's going to lose their jobs that are working in fossil fuel industry right now, and they're going to be left hung out to dry trying to feed their families. And that's just not the case. That's not what a transition looks like. And I also want to acknowledge that that word transition can be really triggering for some people, because folks have been let down and left behind before. And so we need to make sure that we're being very thorough when we're doing those transitions to keep people in well-paid, amazing jobs so that they can live prosperously in Canada, regardless of which province or territory you're in.
Okay, except that, Albertans are going to be asked in October to express their viewpoints in referendums regarding 9 points, many of them touching on the Constitution. There could also be a potential referendum on independence in Alberta. How, if you were to become the federal NDP leader, how could you be a voice in favor of making the argument for Canadian Confederation if you're standing against economic development for the province in the form of this MOU that's been signed with Ottawa?
Well, again, I don't feel like that pipeline should be our focus of economic development. We have so many other opportunities to invest in economic development, and ones that are also a lot better for your mind and your body. It's hard working in those industries, working on oil patches. I have family that does that work, and it's really, really hard. It's hard on families being away from them like every other week or 2 weeks out of every month. It's really tough. If we wanted to see an immediate boost in our economy, especially in our healthcare economy, we'd provide childcare across the country. Just locally alone in Campbell River here, we have over 60 healthcare workers that would jump back to work in our hospital if they all had access to the childcare that they needed. So if we want to, enable people to participate and contribute in our economy, childcare is a very easy switch to flip that could really make that happen across the country.
But for an oil patch, worker,
there's other ways of investing in economy than a pipeline.
Okay, but for an oil patch worker, though.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and like it kind of goes back to that transition, right? We can't talk about a transition without first investing in the training necessary for building on that. So you have to invest in the renewable energy opportunities, build the training to go along with that, so that then there is that smooth transition into a great paying supportive job. So like I offered, there's not an immediate shutdown and sending people home and job losses across the board. That's not what we're talking about. We're talking about investing in renewable energy and transitioning workforces into professions that not only still pay really well and have good comprehensive healthcare, unionized green jobs that can still feed families. That's the work that we need to do. It's not about a full-on stop and sending people into poverty. We have to structure that transition in. And right now, I mean, trying to get that out of conservative governments is never going to happen. Trying to get it out of a liberal government, not really happening right now. There's the constant investment and conversations built around pipelines as kind of this only mechanism to possibly benefit our economy, which just is not true.
Okay. Listen, national unity could also become an issue in Quebec, as you know. There could be down the road, if the Parti Québécois wins the next provincial election, another independence referendum in the province of Quebec. You yourself do not speak French. How can you play a role in that referendum if you have no fluency in one of our two official languages?
Yeah, so I am very grateful and lucky to have a really solid Francophone team behind the campaign that is wholeheartedly dedicated to making sure that we can start in Quebec in day one. And special areas of Quebec for me are also the rural ridings in Quebec. We have a very strong agricultural and farming community in Quebec that you don't hear about very often. And the challenges that they're up against don't come up in debates. And so we're really missing a whole load of Quebecers, a whole load of Francophone community members that don't feel like they're represented when we go back to these kind of urbanized conversations. So that's kind of where my starting place is making sure that I have that strong Francophone community around me to be able to go into Quebec and, get started on that immersion, which I think is absolutely vital to honing in a Francophone culture and language. And showing up in those rural areas saying, look, I see you and I hear you, and you're not going to get forgotten by our party. Because agricultural and farming communities across Canada are essential to who we are as a country, but we just don't see their voices being championed at the federal level, and we really need to change that.
Okay. Listen, before we're done here, I also want to talk a bit about Iran, because as this interview is happening, the United States is now in a war with Iran. The Prime Minister, his immediate response hours afterwards says that, he does back the United States as it, according to him, prevented Iran from gaining a nuclear weapon. Also, he said, prevented the regime from threatening international peace and security. He then added, days later, that the backing comes with regret because it was evidence of the rules-based order breaking down once again. What's your response to that?
I mean, you're the Prime Minister of Canada. You need to be very conscious of the words you're putting out to the world. And, you know, Mark Carney is supporting Trump's bombing of Iran. That, I mean, let's be clear, was only going to kill innocent civilians. It does not represent Canada's culture of peacekeeping and respecting international law. So it was really, I mean, you expect more from our prime minister, especially in these moments. Canadians don't want to see their prime minister cheering on like a Trump Netanyahu war in Iran. That's not who we are as Canadians. It's not the culture we carry, and we should be expecting more from our prime minister.
Tanille Johnston, I appreciate the time today. Thank you for that.
Thank you so much. It's so great to be on your show and to say hi.